Thank you, everyone. You're all here on a weeknight, and especially ahead of a long weekend. And I was driving from Delhi. The whole city was empty. It was like everybody rushed to some other, maybe Goa, for the long weekend.
Apparently not nowadays.
Yeah, all of GK2 has moved to Goa anyway.
Tell me about it.
So thank you. And Santosh is one of my favorite social commentators. I remember as a reporter, so many times I bugged you because any story I did about society, economy, culture, changing India, any change, I used to call him because I loved his insights and he has a way with language also, the way he deploys language. So he is funny and he's deep, he's scathing. And it's a rare mind, it's a rare combination to have all of those. So it's always a delight to talk. So I've been a fan, so I'm going to be fangirling him. So the book, I really enjoyed the book. It's about smartphone Bharat, right? And it's about how Indians are using smartphones to love, to hate, to navigate nostalgia, nationhood. And it's also about how it's making us edgy and anxious. It's making us joyous, but it's also making us very angry and anxious. And it's about an India that is changing, but it's also about an India that's pushing back against this change. So, and in this cusp between what's changing and what's not changing, that's the India he puts under a microscope. And he brings these delightful chapters on this, on the zeitgeist, as it were. He captures this moment of change. I want to begin with a rapid fire. What do you find cute about the way Indians use smartphone?
I find the fact that, elder members of the family believe that the world will come to a stop if they don't send us the good morning message. I find that the earnestness with which they send out, and if they're late, then they feel as if, the world has kind of, lost its orientation. I think that's very sweet, although it's a little bit much also. But I think on the whole, it is sweet.
There's a line in your book that says, all of India wakes up to pink roses. What do you find infuriating about the way Indians use smartphone?
I think the fact that, any kind of rubbish. I mean, and in fact, I find that the smartphone, two things I find infuriating. One is the fact that there is this great, almost unself-conscious belief that you are the center of the universe. So I look at how we take selfies. Right, I find it very interesting that, we have this absolute confidence we are the most important thing in the room. So if we go in front of the Taj Mahal and we take a selfie, we are the monument. The Taj Mahal is the backdrop, I mean, it's that. I mean, you can, piche kuch hai, safed sa. But, it's actually, so I find that very interesting how, in a very short period of time, from being very self-effacing, if you look at photographs of an earlier time, there'll be little photograph, everybody standing very shyly, demurely, or you have those studio photograph portraits where the family, everybody standing like that, and we have a portrait. From that time to now, so again, everything about the internet, there is a part of it that is sweet, and that a part of it that is infuriating.
You call it the over-documented self in the book. What do you find embarrassing about the way we use smartphones?
I think the fact that we overshare. The fact that I really don't want to know about your honeymoon. I really, really, really don't. Meaning and it's interesting. This whole thing of oversharing and going through details of, I find it very cringe. The fact that you believe that everything that you do, you turn your life inside out and expect that, everybody else has an interest in it. I find that embarrassing.
And what's dangerous?
Oh, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff is dangerous. Of course, the fact that you have all these unverified forwards on WhatsApp, which I think is like absolutely dangerous. The other thing that I find very dangerous are medical opinions, which are where everyone will authoritatively say, "Ye iska leaf ka pani lo, garam karo, usme ye kuch squeeze something, and then it cures everything." And the crazy part is that at a time when we have become more distrustful of doctors, we somehow trust this random kind of prescriptions that people who we don't know, are putting up on WhatsApp, and we think that isme kuch hoga zarur. Yeah, this sounds like a good thing. So I think that's again something that I think is dangerous.
Do you think the way Indians use smartphone is any different from the way the world is using it?
I think in some ways, yes. I think in some ways, I mean, now it doesn't happen. For instance, the missed call thing was such it was only India could do it. Give missed call to this number, which I think was just genius, right? But that was just so Indian. Also, I don't think WhatsApp is used in quite the same way virtually anywhere in the world. I think the way WhatsApp is used in India, and WhatsApp has become like the emotional plumbing of India, right? It's like all of us are kind of, there's a pipeline network that connects all of us, and it's WhatsApp. I mean, to me that's what, and it's an incredible emotional infrastructure that we've created, because the kind of connections that shallow but continuous. I think that's what that so you can't get away from them, but it's a very shallow connection.
Have you ever tried to uninstall WhatsApp on your phone?
No. I am not one of those digital detox people, and it's something that my Vibha, my wife, speaks to me about quite often. I am completely dyed in the wool. I enjoy being on digital media. I'm not one of those people who sort of moans about the fact that it's frying my brain. It is frying my brain, but I don't moan about it.
How many groups are you part of?
I don't know. It must be a few dozen. Few dozen, I'm sure.
They're surprised.
No, in the sense that there are lots of, they're not all active, but at various points in time, somebody would have created a group and it's lying there. I mean, uska bichara mere ko kya I mean, it's not bothering me in any way.
You never exit.
So it's,
you never exit groups.
Some groups I hurry to exit.
I want to know which one you exited last.
My school group.
Why?
Because you discover the people who are harmless, sweet, people with next to you turn out to be these monsters with opinions that are so, I mean, they're so terrifying that you say, okay, I mean, it's best to not know this. Because in school, everybody, your interests are very, very superficial, and you know each other, and everybody is a kind of friend. But then you suddenly realize that, time has changed them, and so that, to me, the school group is actually the most terrifying realization that I find is in the school group.
Did you protest, argue before you exited, or did you just quietly?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Actually, the thing about the WhatsApp group is that there is a certain structure to it, which is the fact that it tends to the middle. What happens is that when you have views that are dissenting, they gradually get squeezed out. So you protest a couple of times, you have arguments a couple of times, but then just the sheer volume of effort it takes. So unless you are really committed to having that and devoting your life to having WhatsApp, debates with idiots, it is not worth, expending that kind of effort. So at a certain stage, you cut your losses, and you say it's best for me to be out of this group rather than, engage with this and try and convince, these people whom in any case you will never, convince.
So what are you likely to find if all of India's WhatsApp groups went into a blender? What are you likely to find in, say, a family WhatsApp group?
I think family WhatsApp group, are interesting because at one level they have been instrumental in keeping a family together in some form at a time when those relationships were fraying. So at least the fact that there is an identity as a family, that you are connected in a way. So at one level there is that. At another level, there are hierarchies, old hierarchies that prevail. Because, the elder aunt you cannot say anything against the elder aunt, etc. So, there are some of those that happen. And it kind of echoes what happens at home. The young people in a family group are almost always reluctant people who are there, because they have to be there. They detest being there. They are dragging their feet. But, they have no option, and occasionally somebody will wish them and they have to sort of, perfunctorily say something and get the hell out of there. So, I think it kind of reflects family dynamics, but I do think that in an overall sense, I do think that there is a certain closeness, and it does help to maintain the sense of a family at a time when otherwise everybody lives in different places, across generations, and it could have been so easy for the family to just completely drift apart. To that extent, I think that it does play a...
So the joint family system exists in WhatsApp groups?
In WhatsApp, everybody is a joint family in some senses.
Yeah. What are you likely to find in an RWA group?
See, the RWA thinks of itself, it's a government in pajamas, in my view. It is like that. It is वो pajama-dhari log, who think they are running the government, is essentially what I think the RWA is. And there is this great sense of self-importance, a great sense of, and so there is a certain amount of performance that happens there. There is a certain amount of policing that happens there, which is very important. And 9:42, this man came, I have a photograph. And, some uncle will put, and this is shocking, and, and then somebody else will sort of, etc. And the budget line item 14 something, I protest against this, etc. So it's incredible how it is, actually I just find it fascinating as a commentary on how power in the smallest unit mimics power at the largest unit. That's what you find, it's very interesting that there is no sense that, bhaiya, I am nobody. I am just, this block, I have to say. But the sense of importance, I think, doesn't change when scale changes.
I remember you telling me that the RWA president is as important, if not more, than the Prime Minister of India.
In his or her own imagination, certainly.
So the other thing that the book talks about, one is, of course, missed call, and that's unique in the way Indians use the smartphone. The other thing he talks about in the book is the OTP. We're an OTP nation, like for, by, and of the OTP. Tell me more about, you've almost written a poem to OTP. It's almost like your Wordsworth of OTP. Talk about why you find this so fascinating and curious.
It's the kind of thing that is more important than anything else in the world. You could be the board chairman, giving your annual presentation. But if there is a Swiggy person at the gate who wants an OTP, then by God you have to give that OTP. You have to stop your speech and give the OTP. 36249, no, 3624, you have to do that. There is a certain urgent and oppressive quality about the OTP, and which I find, it's very interesting. And I think in a way that the idea of, fundamentally it's like a final link. It's a kind of a clicking. Something clicks and the connection is made. It's the final loop that makes the transaction possible, right? So you go through, you order something, and I, at one level, I find it a very innovative way of ensuring that, you are able to close the loop. You're able to say that, yes, the person to whom it was meant to be delivered has been delivered. So I find that, at the base level, that is interesting. But the effect it has, I think in the larger sense, I think is this overall sense of, and what it does is that we are constantly, so if you think about what it does to our sense of time and a sense of the day, constant interruption, constant sense of something else being urgent. And while that thing actually may be very trivial, the packet that you have ordered may be of, ultramarine or something, something really tiny or something, but it doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter to that person.
It doesn't matter to that person. It doesn't matter. It is as urgent. And it's interesting how, that's the thing about digital world. What it has done is that it has fragmented our day and our life. So I talked about this thing about two kinds of time that we see. There is hard time and there is soft time. So hard time is the time that we grew up in earlier, where when you went on a trip, then 3 hours you have to allocate. You go to a wedding, there are 2 hours that you allocate. You go to a film, there are 3 hours that you allocate. You go to school, there are 4 or 6 hours that you allocate. You go to work, there's a fixed chunks of time. Soft time is time that we are on the phone. That time coexists along with all other time. So you can be watching a film, but there are people on the phone. That is liquid time. It gets inside all crevices, and that we have no sense of that time. And what that does is that it changes the structure of a memory. You can spend a whole day, going through reels, and if somebody asks you, what did you watch? Name one reel that you watched. And you will not have a memory of one. Anything. It is all a blur of continuous time. None of it has weight, none of it has meaning, which I think is interesting. It also, so, if I was to think of, say, cinema, and one of the ways of explaining what kind of films work in India today, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that because of soft time, we now have a much higher bar for going to the theater and devoting hard time. We will only go to do that if it is some highly engaging, very, very, theatrical, epic, mythological kind of mounted on a massive scale. It was interesting that, as we went into the multiplex era, the kind of films that started being made were soft time films. If you look at all the films that are made by the new generation of directors, they are the kind of films you can watch on OTT while doing something else. You can pause it. It does not require immersion. It does not. So actually, I find it an interesting frame. And there are, that when you look at how the world being divided into soft time and hard time, and how the growth of soft time is actually changing and shaping us in ways that are profound.
It's interesting you say that movies that are that don't require immersion is being made. So if you were to watch a 1980s or 70s Amitabh Bachchan movie on Netflix today, would you still be scrolling, or is there something in that script that would hook you?
Well, it depends, actually. It depends because, if you have already seen the film, if it's someone like me seeing the film, I would probably still be scrolling because I've seen the film, right? So to me, it is repetition. And to somebody who's a new generation today, may not find the context as interesting today. So to that extent, in a literal sense, I don't know what the answer to that is. But in a conceptual sense, you are right. I do feel that melodrama is an essential part of the Hindi film,
And that's gone.
grammar. And when you take away melodrama from cinema in India, and you make these realistic, sweet films with, with the people of today's sensibility, city, this wake up Sid kind of, that kind of very interesting films. But they are not hard time films, in my view. This is just a theory, but and I'm sure there are other views of it. It's a kind of film that you don't need to go to a theater to watch.
And yet all the melodrama has gone to social media.
Yes, it has, but or to South Indian films.
Go figure.
So which is the reason why the South Indian films do so well. But melodrama in social media is actually I think that is the thing. On a daily basis, the amount of emotional highs and lows that we are witness to. It's just unprecedented as against an earlier time.
Today there was a tweet. Someone said, "Never attack Russia in winter, and never attack India on Twitter." I thought that was so apt. Since you're talking about movies, I remember Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, right? The great Indian wedding, the big fat Indian wedding, entered Bollywood through Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. And cut to 2025, 2026, Bollywood has entered all our weddings. And there's a whole chapter in the book about this wedding you organized / attended. You were the father. And oh my God, even Anita Ambani or an Arvind Kejriwal are not immune to it. You still have the stage in a Arvind Kejriwal family wedding where he can't dance, but he's forced to dance and he's looking ridiculous and kind of cute. But, so tell me about the wedding that has changed, and how did you cope with this wedding?
By not dancing, largely. But yeah, so no, I think the wedding, it's interesting that if you think about the wedding in India, it becomes like this place where almost all kind of aspirations coalesce, right? You have, here there is you want to, enjoy consumption, you want to display your success, you want to, be uninhibited and let go and have a good time. In a sense, it becomes like if there was a place which was an advertisement for consumerism in India, it is a wedding.
Wasn't it always the case?
No, weddings in India were a very timid affair. They were I come from Gujarat, our weddings were positively boring. They were actually, and then you have to wait for hours. There would be the pandit would take hours and hours and hours, and you would stand around, waiting. I only remember all weddings as Bharat aa rahi, nahi aayi, khade raho, Bharat nahi aayi, abhi khana nahi kha sakte, Bharat nahi aayi. It's like that. You're just constantly kind of dealing with. I thought Indian weddings were actually never fun in the way that they are now. And I think it is the Punjabiization of India. Where everybody, like in our, like Gujarat, there was never a concept of a Bharat. Now, of course there's a Bharat. There's no way you can do a wedding without Bharat. There is no, Sangeet, now nobody had Sangeet. Only parts of India, everybody has to do Sangeet today.
I believe even Tamil weddings have Sangeet now.
Yeah. So, but I think the idea that, at one level at a certain level, it's just about the fact that why should ceremonies and rituals be, about sacrifice or about, a certain amount of seriousness, a certain amount of gravitas, and so like the Karwa Chauth has become a celebratory festival, right? And so has the wedding. The wedding is now the whole idea is that it's actually just pleasure. I mean, if you think about, except for some nonsense that will happen with relatives being unhappy or something, which is a standard Indian wedding situation. But barring that, everybody is, and then look at alcohol and how it has kind of infiltrated weddings.
From Karobar to the wedding.
Yeah, which was the other thing. Karobar was the thing that, okay, you did get drunk, but outside,
In the parking lot.
Yeah, in the parking lot. But now it's everyone, and you have cocktails, and also the idea that, everything new happens at the wedding. Like the food, and you look at the kind of 42 different kinds of food, that you have, that every time in a wedding something new must happen. So it actually has become the place where we display ourselves at our best, at our most garish also, at our loudest, and at our most uninhibited.
And I remember in the book you say the haldi ceremony will be hashtagged. And it's almost like, 15 years ago I read that the revolution will be tweeted. So now from there we've come to the haldi ceremony. How did you avoid dancing at the wedding?
I was hiding. No. We were not dancing. We danced actually, but we just had a band playing regular music and we danced. We didn't do choreographic time. We didn't do the choreography thing where you kind of with that we didn't do, but we danced. Of course, we danced.
So tell me, are we becoming more modern? Would you call us a modern society today, or is there still this messy negotiation going on with modernity?
We are absolutely not a modern society. We are absolutely not a modern society. I think in India, modernity is always a form of negotiated tradition. Modernity is always tradition kind of expanding, but not altering its fundamental shape or structure. And which is the reason why you find it's very interesting that even with all the changes that the digital world has brought about, actually we are moving into opposite directions. At the individual level, we are transforming, right? And we are, there are new behaviors, there are new concepts. Work is a new concept today. Relationships are new concepts today. But at a collective level, if anything, we are regressing. And I think this is a very interesting kind of a pattern that we are seeing, that at a collective level, in fact, and I have sort of my own explanation for this, which is the fact that if you think about it, through human history, the most jealously guarded asset has been the broadcasting, right to broadcast. Who gets to speak to groups of people, who has the right to speak for people at a mass level? Never has that has been jealously guarded. So if you see, growing up in India, if as an ordinary person, where would my voice be heard? In the newspaper every day, there are 3 letters to the editor. 3 letters to the editor that you can do. So only 3 people get to speak their word. The only other place where your voice would be heard if you made a request to Vivid Bharati, for a Hindi film song. Right? That is the only other place where your voice would be heard. Now look at this. From that time, when you had that kind of gatekeeping, to a point where everybody is a broadcaster. That our societies are not equipped to handle a cataclysmic change of that magnitude. Because now everybody speaks. When everybody speaks, what happens? So you go back in the past, and the average level of the epistemic discourse, the level of talk, what it was rooted in, where we drew knowledge from, was from books, was from authority figures, was from articles, newspaper editorials. That was a source of information and knowledge. Today it is reels, it's tweets, it's blogs, right? That is now the source of knowledge. So in a way, what has happened is that our discourse itself now reflects the fact that everybody is speaking without in an earlier time, you could argue that was a very elitist kind of a world because only few people got to speak. But now it's the opposite, where because everybody speaks at the same time, it is now you find more and more. And what happens when that happens is the fact that opinions, also because of the fact that, particularly on Twitter, it's immediate. Whatever you think, you can write from the outermost surface of your mind. Whatever comes to you, you put it down, right? On Twitter. And it can be anonymous. And it recirculates instantly. Right? So these are some of the characteristics that means that all kinds of opinions. So the shittiest opinions, right, today not become mainstream very quickly. The other thing that happens is that somebody who's, a very misogynist kind of an opinion, somebody comes out with, earlier you were afraid of consequences, right? It was not considered good to say something. You had to keep a certain kind of a civility in mind. Today, when you do that, you find there are 1,000, 100,000 people like you who are cheering you. And so suddenly, what was unspeakable has become legitimate, has become absolutely mainstream, and in fact glorified. So that's why we have the Andrew Tates of the world, that who are emerging. That's why we have so many shifts that are taking place where religious fundamentalism, the fact that the whole toxic masculinity kind of a discourse that we are seeing, caste, and how you are seeing, a certain kind of a reveling in ideas that you had thought were never going to be part of mainstream again. All of them are back. Trump, of course, in the US, right, is a graphic example of that. So I do think that what we are seeing is therefore at the collective level, we are kind of, going back, and we are organizing around more primal tribalism, more instinct, more impulse. We are going that, and at an individual level, ironically, meaning we are changing our behavior, but none of it classifies as modern.
So about 20 years ago, when Amartya Sen wrote about the argumentative Indian, and he said it in a positive way, that's a good thing. But you're saying that's now on steroids, it's now cacophonous, and it's dangerous? So what happened to the good argument that we always took pride in? Whether it's Vedic India or modern India, we love to argue. And that was the DNA of our democracy.
Yeah, but this is not an argument. Actually, what we are doing now is not arguing. What we are doing now is speaking in our own corners, shouting in our own corners without listening to the other person. So it's actually not an argument at all. It is only both sides, actually, on every side, actually, not just in India, globally. There are rarely any arguments. Arguments means you all both reside within the same frame. There is one frame which is common, and within that you have 2 points of view. Here the 2 frames are different. You don't accept the premise of the other person at all. So if you don't accept the premise, if there is no starting point that you agree on, how do you, and the other thing that has happened is because facts have become so, kind of expendable. So now what is the material with which you argue? Right? An argument, if I came up with a fact and I was arguing with you and I had a fact and you acknowledged that this was a fact, then I could persuade you. Because, you accept that, okay, that's a fact, you are right. On this one, maybe you are right. But if you don't accept facts as facts, where is the basis for arriving at any? So it's not an argument at all. We don't have arguments today. We only are, people are screaming and shouting slogans from their corner.
Yeah, in journalism we have a joke: quick with facts, quicker with opinions. So that's where it is. What about hot democracy? You're saying we're living in an overheated democracy. We're living with angry channels where outrage is cheap. And if we are going through the brain rot right now, and if we're living in a cacophonous society where everybody has a microphone, what kind of a democratic leaders do you think this era will throw up? And are we already seeing that around the world?
Yeah, I think which is the reason why you find, the kind of leaders that we see around the world, a lot of them are people who speak to the most, primal emotions. I mean, that essentially. So you find, if you think about it, what democracy does is to convert mass emotion into governance. What I mean by that is the fact that all of us have a sentiment, we feel a certain way, we feel strongly about something. It gives us the instrument of a vote, so we use our emotion, convert it into a vote, and that vote elects somebody who then goes through a fairly convoluted process of governance to convert it into policy. So emotion gets converted into policy after passing a whole lot of circuit breakers. So that, so the mass sentiment does get translated in somehow into action. What is happening today is the fact that there is no need to convert into policy. We are operating only at the level of emotion. So what is happening is that if you can create a certain dialogue around religious divisiveness, and so then the most minor issues become electoral issues, and things of governance, etc., stop being electoral issues. So you can have many hours debate about which song should be sung and whether it's legitimate to be sung or not. It becomes a more pressing debate than the fact that pollution is killing people here. But with our, AIQ, being a problem. So, but that's not on our, and so here we have an ex-minister going to Davos and giving a speech there about the importance of acting against pollution. And I think that takes some cheek, I mean,
The other thing, apart from hot democracy, the other thing all of us like to read, talk about, and debate about, and kind of bang our head against the wall about these days, around the world, not just in India, is Gen Z. Who are these creatures? What do we understand them? Do we not understand them? And I think, I mean, our parents had a problem with our generation. You had a problem with it. But Gen Z is something that everybody has a problem with. And this is a brain rot generation. Do we understand them? Are we just judging them too soon, too quickly? What's going on there?
if you think about Gen Z, let's just look at it from a somewhat, not from, let's say, our own lens, but their lens. So here's a generation that suddenly finds that none of the rules of an earlier generation are valid anymore. Work is totally different. Success, the meaning of success has changed. There are billionaires who are 19 years old. So, I mean, whatever you do at 26, you're a loser, right? I mean, there's nothing for you to do that, right? Relationships have got weird. You're in all kinds of situationship, and you have, it's very interesting. We did some work, with Gen Z people, and we find that in romantic relationships, actually, more than being romantic partners, they are co-therapists. They are actually therapists for each other. They're always talking in this, you're gaslighting me, and that's a red flag, and there's ghosting me. It is a whole array of a vocabulary that has developed. All of them are essentially trying to find words for new phenomena. So to my mind, actually what is happening is that this is a generation where, and nobody is there to help them. The parents have no clue, absolutely no clue, right? Their teachers have no clue. Their friends are all in the same boat, so it's not as if anybody knows better. The millennials think they're weird, right? So the elder, siblings also don't really, get them. So I think there is genuinely a situation where this is a generation. You see, our generation knew the rules, and we occasionally try to break them. This is a generation where they have to make the rules before they can break them. And to me, that's such a difficult and disorienting thing for a generation to do, where you don't have rules to follow, where you have to create your own rules, where you have to find what is, whether what is moral, what is, what is acceptable, what, is just. I mean, all of these things are something that I think the Gen Z has to figure out for itself. And yes, it does create, I think, a sense of bewilderment in older generations, particularly in the workplace. I certainly see that. Most people, employers are like,
why do they not stick around in jobs is what they say.
Yeah. So it's simply the fact that I think in terms of their model of how they think of time, how they think of career, how they think of, this idea that this is a continuous, time is continuous. And therefore, once you get into something, you will have to emerge at the other end. That is something they don't accept.
So do you think Gen Z around India are all going through the same thing, or do you think small town, rural Gen Z is different from urban Gen Z?
Yeah, in India, always there is difference. I mean, there is never uniformity. And so, yes, there is a difference. There is a certain structural similarity, but there is a difference because the context is different. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about Gen Z are people are from that strata that has a certain amount of, for the first time, a feeling of some abundance. Right, and that is what you see, here, that there is, and therefore there is a certain ease. There is no that pressing need to perform and be successful, because that survival depends on it is no longer, for that generation. That is what, when we classically talk about Gen Z and all the archetypes, that is what we talk about. As you go into smaller town India, you will see that. You will see some elements of that. You will see the fact that, because eventually social media effects are not different anywhere else. Their life contexts are different. So I think what does happen there is that, for instance, some things, they are pretty much like, Gen Z elsewhere. The whole interest in content creation, in becoming a content creator, in becoming an
Influencer.
influencer, in becoming, that I think is something that is uniform. If anything, smaller town, actually it is a more, it is something that is far more kind of aspirational, something that really moves them. The idea of, catapulting from being nobodies into somebodies is a very powerful kind of an
And a
idea.
lot of urban, wealthy Gen Zs and wealthy Indians would consume that as cringe content,
Yeah,
right? So they
yeah.
get a lot of following.
Yeah. So, and the fact of the matter is that, and influencers, I think, are very interesting because, they have fundamentally, in terms of our reference points, earlier we had celebrities, right? Who are these larger than life people, or we had these brands who would, tell us how to behave. Now we have these people next door, you know, and what they do is they break down life into little granular bits. So I find Reels really fascinating, or TikTok earlier, because it kind of is almost a minute by minute narrative of your life. And everything it breaks down into little small bits. So for instance, how to apply makeup, not told to you by a fashion designer or from a beautician from, sitting in Mumbai, but from your next door neighbor kind of a person who is actually telling you your problem, is actually using products that you can afford, right? I think bit by bit. So I find, in some ways, I really see influencers as professional consumers. I mean, it is almost like, so for instance, the idea that unboxing of something can be a visual spectacle is an amazing idea, right? कि मैंने डब्बा खोला ऐसे और कुछ ये निकाला, and I've got 1 million views. I mean, it's an incredible thing that you can create theater out of everything. You can tell stories out of everything, and there are these people who, I think it's very empowering. It is very empowering for them to kind of have that ability to cut across and vault over all the hierarchies and all obstacles and directly create something that resonates with people. So I think it's a very, very empowering kind of an idea. Just as much as it is also, over a period of time, it means that everything that people want, and all young people want to do is take the easy way out in some ways. Because that is if you succeed, it feels like the easy way out, although most influencers will tell you it is not actually that easy to
Although
sustain
many
it.
people are saying that the whole influencer economy, influencer as a career choice, is short-lived because AI is going to take over it very soon. And so you will not need real-life influencers. But let me come to my next question about patriotism. How we Indians feel about who we are, the nationhood, our identity. You wrote about that comfort we have with who we are in the post-liberalization 90s, and you talk about the Channel V generation, whose tagline was, "We are like this only." There was a very easy acceptance of who we are, what's and all, and we didn't really need to be somewhere else. This is who we are. So tell me about the 90s patriotism and the patriotism that you see in the current decade.
Yeah, I think the 90s patriotism was, in some ways, was a realization and a sense of pride that came after years of believing that, we were somehow not as good as the West. And as things opened out, as we stopped kind of looking at the world only through a lens of constraint, we suddenly realized, oh, actually, we are pretty cool. And that's what somebody like Channel V did, that, we are a little nuts, but, it's all good, right? I mean, that's what, we are like this only says that, कि हाँ थोड़ा tap 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 है, but, we are still okay, right? So I think that sense of pride was really about saying that, like you said, was acceptance of the self. I think what you're seeing increasingly now is a desire to be much more, and therefore this desire to impose yourself on the world, and the sense that we are not just good enough, but we are actually much better than others, and that and so therefore there is a certain assertiveness, a certain aggressiveness that has come in, and I think this has been a gradual process, and I think up to a point, I think that assertiveness and the lack of embarrassment, the lack of apology, I think was very empowering for a lot of people. But I think it comes to a point, and I think today, I think there is a danger of our being a little delusional in terms of where India is in the world, how strong it actually is in the world, and in our this great kind of a need that we seem to have to present ourselves as having arrived, where therefore anybody who points out that no, not quite arrived, is seen to be therefore kind of somehow anti-national or some whatever, all the words that are used. But I do think that this sense of getting ahead of ourselves, and also you see this in this whole discourse that has come, the narrative that is you see around us of the ugly Indian abroad. Yeah, you see that, and that is a sign of this, the fact that there is a somehow unearned confidence in the fact that one has arrived. And I really do think that actually, if you think about my kind of thing about my kind of one-line summary about where India is, and is that we want progress, but we don't want change. I think to me, this is, if I had to kind of diagnose where we are in a sentence, I would say we want progress. We want all the shiny new things. We want great airports. We want highways. We are okay. We want that. And that is progress. We are doing that. But what we are not comfortable with is change. In that, we will build highways and then we will build those large green boards which tell you who are the people exempt from paying the lousy 50 rupees on toll. There is no country in the world that is obsessed with who is exempt from rules. You go to an airport, there are 32 categories of people who are exempt from frisking. Why is that so important as to who is exempt from frisking? As a society, why does hierarchy matter so much to us? So if we are not, and that's the reason why we will build new roads, but those roads will collapse within a year, right? Flooding. You look at the city, there is nothing we'll do about flooding. The point is this, that if we don't change and the reason for that is that our societal programming is so strong that in India, politics was supposed to transform society. Society has transformed politics irredeemably. You had institutions supposed to transform society. They have been transformed by society in turn. Judiciary today, which is supposed to be, today you see the judiciary speaking like a village elder. A lot of the judgments have a quality of the panchayat about it, right? They are like advising people. It is not based on principles of jurisprudence. So fundamentally, what is happening is that we are not being able to transform society, in fact, and its rules, its hierarchies, the principles that it follows are the ones that are continuing to kind of bedevil us. And I think the biggest problem in India, therefore, is soft infrastructure, not hard infrastructure. It is soft. It's the infrastructure of trust. We don't trust doctors. We don't trust teachers. There is no institution today that we can have, complete trust in. Everything you say, everything is compromised. Everything you feel that this is not going to work. And to me, the thing about being developed is the fact that you must be able to take some things for granted. In India, nothing can be taken for. You can't take an FIR, which is a first information report. An FIR, to file an FIR is like a thing. I mean, whereas it's meant to be mandatory. Nothing is automatic. And to me, that is the great challenge India has, which is how over, at one level, progress, and a lot of progress. But at another level, there is something within it. If we don't change that essential grammar.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but taking you back to what you said a couple of minutes earlier, which is that we are getting ahead of ourselves. We are believing that we have already arrived, but we haven't. But the thing is, I think we're tired of incrementalism. We are tired for having waited so long because, 47, nothing happened. Then, Nehru came, nothing happened. Indira Gandhi ruined everything. And then somebody else came, ruined everything. So, one after the other. So, and to be constantly told that you're third world, and remember, we always have this thing of having come from a great civilization. Maybe we didn't build a robust nation state, but we are an ancient great civilization, so we had that overhang in our consciousness. So we just got impatient somewhere and said, we're going to skip all this. We're going to skip the bridges, we're going to skip the airports, we're going to skip the pothole roads. We're just going to declare ourselves great. Self-certification ka zamana hai, right? And what Modi says, PM Modi says, Ichha Shakti, right? It's a very powerful word, because in a lot of his speeches, he used the word Ichha Shakti. That we've got the willpower. We're going to will ourselves to greatness by just sheer belief. Almost like Nietzsche said, you have to believe yourself and propel yourself to greatness. What would you say to those people who say, we've had enough of this incrementalism? We want to be great. We are great. We're already there.
No, I would say that is an understandable sentiment, but that doesn't make it right. I can understand why people would feel that way, but that doesn't help. If anything, so by all means, Ichha Shakti, let us transform, let us make sure that, there is a police reform that takes place. Let us make sure that the bureaucracy works as it does. I mean, Ichha Shakti bhi to hai na, sirf Ichha nahi hai. There's something has to happen also, right? So I'm just saying, just the transformational power of wanting something badly. Yes, I think it is important not to be apologetic. It is important to have, ambitious goals. It is important to think, transformation. But just thinking transformation to believe that is all that it needs is obviously not true, right? It has to get followed. And what you're seeing today, institutions are the heart of any governing, polity and society. If your institutions are weakening, if getting a license for something, getting a clearance for something, every single place, if there is always some arbitrage that is required, where some negotiation that is required, where nothing can be taken for granted, that is simply not the way that, this Ichha Shakti can ever materialize. If you don't change the grammar of your working, we have to be able to trust, that in judiciary, we will get quick kind of an outcome. We have to trust that if there's a problem with the police, it'll get taken care of. We have to feel that a bureaucrat will act impersonally and not use power for personal gain. Those are essential fundamentals that you have in any society.
But it's those guardrails of institutions that did not work, and that's why we are where we are today, right?
Exactly.
The institutions were already broken or breaking.
But eventually, if we are serious about turning it around, then we have to start somewhere, right? We can't just say they were broken earlier. Yes, they were broken earlier. So what are we doing about it? Yeah, so now what are we doing about it?
We're blaming the past.
Yeah, that's excellent idea. Excellent idea.
Blame the past and leapfrog into the future.
Yeah, I think we are getting there.
Do we have a question? Room for one more question? Startup wealth, right? You talked about 19-year-old billionaires, and in your book you talk about the startup wealth being a paperless wealth, and you say they have very little responsibilities, right? And yet, in today's India, and as an editor, I can see that anytime any startup CEO says anything, it goes viral. People want to hear the startup founders. People want to believe in the mythology of possibility that they create, right? And do you think the startup CEOs have a bigger voice in public discourse today than your Tatas and Birlas and Hindujas did in the 80s, maybe?
Absolutely, and I think particularly among the young, I see they are the alchemists of a modern time. They are magicians, right? Because they have converted. They all came yesterday, right? You look at all the legacy houses; they've been slogging away at it, for decades. And here and there's a certain magic about this, right? Because it confounds all conventional business logic. The fact that most of these people are not making money. Most of these people have no assets.
Valuation.
It's just valuation, right? Which is all just somebody else betting on the future. And this magic that happens in 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, and then suddenly you're talking about, billionaires being created. And this is just, why is it not fast? It is absolutely, it is alchemy. It is, turning something into gold. It is the fact that effortless, it feels effortless. It feels instant. It feels magical, and at a time when that's always a great idea. The idea that it's such a mesmerizing thought. The idea that without doing that much or without slogging for years and years and years, suddenly I will think of something, I will launch something, I'll get funding, and then within 4 or 5 years, I'll get 2 or 3 round funding, and there I am,
And then I'll sell it and make.
and living in the camellias or something, So, yeah. So I think that's a very heady thought, and then no wonder that because it also turns all ideas about time, and bit by bit by bit you grow, and then you accumulate, and you have all of this goes out of the window, because it's just like that, just suddenly you're and I think that's just such a very, very, I think, heady thought for young people.
Open up for the questions. Yeah, so we'll take questions from the audience now.
The gentleman in the magnificent mustache.
Santosh, what is your thought on the fact, or what is your thought on the subject of this kind of situation that we are in with the mobile phone and the communication systems that exist now, are they promoting indiscipline, or are they promoting a move away from indiscipline? Because if you think about it, one of the basic problems we have in the country today is indiscipline. If you cut across a lot of the issues that we face, they have got to do with indiscipline. What is the impact of all of this on that core factor? And the second point quickly is that, I mean, I manage traffic in an RWA. Okay, on the mobile phone and the WhatsApp group. The tyranny of the few. And 450 members of the RWA, there are about 18 people who hog 90% of the traffic. So if this is it, they get up in the morning and if they have nothing else, they go downstairs and buy a carrot. This is true, actually. So therefore, is this the tyranny of the few in terms of communication? So these are two questions I have.
Yeah, and I find actually two of them related in a sense. What we are seeing, I do think that the mobile phone is certainly not disciplining. I think because it gives everyone an individual voice, and it kind of, therefore people point in different directions. It is, self-justifying. Essentially what the mobile phone does, that whatever point of view you have, because of the algorithm, it's not just the mobile phone. The algorithm will feed you stuff that you agree with, that you respond to. So bit by bit by bit, it keeps kind of, that's the reason why, the whole polarization thing that everybody talks about. So when polarization happens and then, the idea of discipline, what is discipline? The idea of discipline is that I will subjugate my individual needs and desires to a higher common standard. So I will control my own impulse in the sort of service of something which is larger. That is how traffic order is maintained. That is how the fact that I will not try and overtake from the wrong side, even though I can, because I want to maintain order. But in a situation where everybody's voice gets legitimacy, everybody's desire is seen to be self-justifying, that if you want it, then it must be true, then that is right. I think that is what you are seeing happen in the mobile phone. So I do, which is the reason why you do see, you see all these people who are doing reels also, and driving around like maniacs on the road. You'll see a lot of that because of the fact that that is the kind of the ecosystem that gets created. The second part of it, sorry, what did you say about the tyranny of the few? Yeah, that has always been, been true, and I think that is what, in some ways, social media is also the tyranny of the few. Actually, because a lot of the what we think of as being the gutter space on social media is actually only a very small percentage of users. But that is the point. When you have a common communication format where everybody gets a voice and there is no gatekeeping, then that, I think, structurally is the problem. How do you? That's what, in an earlier time, if you have structures, when you didn't have a WhatsApp, then the only time that those people could speak was at the annual body meeting. Now they speak every day, right? So the nuisance value of those people goes up only because of the communication format, right? So that communication format is, the structure of it is such that I think it breeds that constant sense of unhappiness and outrage, which is what we see on social media also. Same structure.
Yeah, Santosh, you spoke very well, as you always do, and you've written very well. You know, there was a lot said, very valid, about how things are getting worse and how society is not what it should be, and that the Gen Z is, when you said the unearned confidence. I mean, people are behaving in a certain way without unearned. And that's what's getting now a very bad name for India in, say, Ireland, in Canada. We used to go abroad 3 or 4 years ago and we were respected. He's from India. Today, something has gone wrong in 4 years, and you've touched on it. I just want to also touch on what Amar said, was the tyranny of the few. But Nietzsche said that democracy is the result of the tyranny of the majority. So, are we going towards a different kind of tyranny with indiscipline, as he said, and as you referred to the mess up in our social world? Are we going in that direction? And if we are, then my question is, how is it going to end? Are we going to see an explosion? Is it going to go out of control once before something like a revolution? How is it going to end?
No, I think that's well said. I think the tyranny of the many is something that you are seeing, globally. I think actually what I would characterize it as is actually the fact that there is a certain nakedness with which strength today, exerts itself. There is a certain unashamed, uninhibited kind of exercise of strength. So if you look at a lot of the 20th century in particular, the idea of a rules-based order was the idea that strength was always recognized and it worked. In the real world, it always exerts itself. But even then, there was a sense of strength being contained, being used and channelized to create greater sense of equality among different kind of countries. I think today that we are seeing, not just among countries, but even across the board, the idea that if you're strong, don't be ashamed. If you're strong, you have a right to lord it over the weak. I think that is what you're beginning to see. I mean, if you see films like, say, Animal, that is the anger of the strong. It's not the anger. The Amitabh Bachchan film was the anger of the weak, of the anger of the marginalized. Today's, if you look at cinema, is the anger of the strong. It is actually the fact that, and that anger has a very, very kind of a visceral quality, which is what you see also in a lot of extreme kind of, political, religious kind of, expressions that you see. And anger, looking for enemies. That, I think, is what, and then the strong exerting their power without, and Trump is the ideal example of that, right? Essentially saying, if I am strong, if I can take over Venezuela, why will I not? The idea that, every country is sovereign and they have rights, that all goes out of the window. And I think, to me, that is really what is happening in the world today. Where it will end, I have absolutely no idea. You can take comfort sometimes in history in saying that, these are, cycles and we will see this kind of, because I think fundamentally in many ways what has happened is that the world has moved too fast for society to absorb it. Technology and everything, all the changes have come so quickly. And society, we don't have the rules. We don't have a way of ordering this. And so therefore this is a time of great, great dislocation. And AI is also coming, which is also going to create another set of dislocations. So I do think that, but eventually the hope is that society catches up and creates a new set of norms. Dislocation has happened in the past. Industrial revolution created a dislocation of a very significant kind. But you, over a period of time, find new mechanisms. So, but that, if you ask me, do I really feel strongly about that? I don't. I'm just saying that is a possibility.
Last question, please.
Yeah.
You've been a columnist for TOI for what, 20 years now?
21, yes.
Now suppose your next article was a fact-based, analytical, but scathing critique of the current political dispensation. Would they print it?
No.
Have they told you so categorically?
The truth is that, last 3 or 4 years, I have to say this, there is a lot of sensitivity about political writing. So it's not as if that, fact-based scathing article to no chance, but even in an article, even when it's not a very, it's not very bluntly stated. If specific individuals are named or there is a specific thing, then I would get a call to say that, can we modify this, can we drop this. So only last 3-4 years. It's not 10 years. It's just last 3-4 years. But it has happened to the point where I pretty much don't write about politics in the Times of India, because every time I write about politics, it gets kind of edited, let's say politely.
Can I close this on a lighter note? Just a small observation. Mother, pious lady, and means for Mummyji. What's this mere pass bar?
Actually, the first one, the Mother Pious Lady, as some of you would know, comes from a classified advertisement ka line, ke father government servant, Mother Pious Lady. Somehow that was seen to be, and it was a qualification for the
Virtue signaling of that time.
yes, virtue signaling for the boys' side. So mother is pious lady, not interested in burning brides, but will. So that was the signal there. So now I really struggled with this thing. I wanted to capture something about memes, something new and something old, and so then I said, okay, chalo, some conceptual kind of a connection between. But if I do a third book, I have a feeling it will not involve a mother,
Please give them a big hand.